Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
You're strong, aren't you? That's what I hear in my head every time I close my eyes. It's not her voice. It's mine, mocking me. A question that isn't really a question. A dare. A demand. You're strong, right? You can handle this. You can handle the weight of betrayal, of realizing the life you lived was built on rot. You can handle that the child you called your own doesn't share your blood. You can handle the shame, the rage, the sorrow. You can handle all of it. Because you're strong, aren't you? I'm not sure. God help me, I'm not sure at all. I want to confess. That's how I'll start. Like a man talking to a camera late at night, begging some faceless friend for understanding. Or maybe it's just me, alone, in this half-lit room with a single bulb buzzing overhead. Feels like I'm on a stage, waiting for an execution, except the audience is gone. The only person left is me. I'm center stage, stripped bare, trembling inside. But my expression is calm. She used to say my face was too still, like tinted glass. No cracks to see within. I tried to keep it that way. I tried to keep everything contained, even after I saw that email. You were wild on the couch, it said. 4 little words. That's all it took to detonate my life. You were wild on the couch. We used to have that couch in our living room. Brown leather, big enough for 2 people to sprawl out on. She always said we needed to replace it because the leather was wearing thin. I wonder if that was her reason, or if it just reminded her of him. Because apparently that's where they'd been. Right there in the home I paid for. Right there where I used to watch football with a beer in my hand. Wild on the couch. But let me back up. Let me give you the edges of this picture. My name is Jack Phillips. I'm from Milwaukee originally. Ended up in Los Angeles for work. Financial consultant, mid-30s, stable job, quiet marriage, or so I thought. My wife, Katie, is a freelance interior designer. She's good at it, actually. Always had an eye for detail. She used to shift the pillows on that very couch 3 times a day, looking for the perfect arrangement. Now I know she was also rearranging her guilt. The day it all cracked started innocently. I was finishing up a work proposal at home, phone buzzing with emails. One from Katie popped in, but the subject line wasn't meant for me. Maybe she typed my name by muscle memory. Maybe it was an accident of God. But there it was. Hey babe, you were wild on the couch. 1 line in the body, no greeting, no sign-off, just that. Then an attachment. A single photo, her bare back, turned halfway to the camera. Hair mussed, a man's hand on her hip. A broad tanned hand that sure as hell wasn't mine. I read it 5 times. My mind refused to parse the words. I tried to breathe. Tried not to look at that hand on her. I blinked, and it was still there. The heat in my chest kept rising. My heart hammered. But outside, ice. That's who I am. I freeze over when the worst hits. I didn't scream. I didn't smash my laptop. I stared at it until I heard her footsteps in the hallway. She had no idea she'd sent the email. She just swung by the doorway, called softly, "Honey, dinner in 5." As if nothing was wrong. I nodded. That was it. No confrontation. No hysterics. No immediate meltdown. I shut the laptop and followed her into the kitchen, like an obedient husband. I sat at the table, ate in silence, listened to her chatter about some new paint samples she was trying out for a friend. Watched the light catch on her wedding ring. Observed how her eyes darted occasionally toward me, as if searching for something, but she didn't suspect. People seldom do when you're like me, wearing that calm face. Later that night, I gave her a massage before bed. That's what she loved. Warm oil, soft pressure on her shoulders, down her spine. She sighed and stretched like a cat. She murmured my name. And I said, "Your gratitude. I don't need it." My voice sounded remote in my own ears. Then I slipped away to the basement, that cramped space I call a workshop. I slept there on a fold-out cot, my mind churning. That's the first night I asked myself, "You're strong, right?" Because I wanted to tear the house apart, but I didn't. I wanted to rip open all her lies, but I didn't. I just sat there in the dark, ignoring the ache in my chest, breathing in dust and stale regret. 2 days later, I ordered a DNA test for our son. Jacob is 3. He's the sweetest boy, gentle, big brown eyes, always coloring pictures of me. Her, a big smiling son. He calls me Daddy. I never questioned that role. But something about that email, maybe it was the mention of Wild on the couch, or maybe the way the attachment showed her with that man, half naked, sent a spike of suspicion into my gut. Our son has darker eyes and hair than me. Sure, that happens. Genetics can be tricky. But I needed to know. The test took 2 weeks. In that time, I kept quiet, did my job, pretended normalcy. Meanwhile, I was reading every sign, every hesitation in her voice. She'd sometimes linger in the living room, phone in hand, smile creeping across her lips as she texted away. I knew it was him. Once, I watched her from the staircase, how her cheeks flushed pink. My nails dug into the banister so hard I nearly broke them. I tried to talk to her about the kid. "Hey, doesn't Jacob remind you more of your side of the family?" She frowned, gave me a quizzical look. "Yeah, maybe. He's got my dad's eyes, I guess." Then she changed the subject. She was good at that. Always flipping conversation from serious to something trivial about her design projects. I wanted proof, the final bullet. When I got it, I stared at those black and white results. Probability of paternity, 0%. That's the official verdict, typed in cold letters. My hand shook as I read that line. I was alone at my desk. Couldn't even stand up. I felt like I'd had the wind knocked out of me, like I'd crashed full speed into a wall. Everything inside me started to burn. The betrayal, the stupidity, the heartbreak, but also some twisted sense of relief, because now it was certain. I had my answer. She came home that evening, and everything was normal. She smiled, offered me a kiss. I let her. She smelled of vanilla lotion, and maybe the faintest hint of cologne that wasn't mine. That night, I was so close to confronting her, my fists clenching under the table, my heart thundering. But instead, I asked her if she wanted a massage again. She looked surprised, then nodded, with that playful grin. "Sure, baby, if you're in the mood." I didn't hurt her. Don't misunderstand. I massaged her shoulders gently, the same as always. She purred like a contented kitten under my hands, moaning how good it felt. But in my head, a storm raged. "You're strong, right? You can wait. You can hold out. You can plan." The next day, I found a number from an old friend of mine, someone I'd known in Milwaukee who had connections to men with a less than savory approach to debt collection. I'd never used that contact, never needed to. But I kept it saved. Call it a piece of insurance from my early 20s, when I'd invested in a startup that nearly went belly up. Some men I knew had ways of persuading people to pay. It was a moral compromise even back then, but I was desperate. Now I was desperate for something else entirely. I discovered a photo of her lover. His name was Tony, some yoga instructor. He had a small studio somewhere downtown. I did some online snooping, found his business page. A real spiritual type, arms covered in geometric tattoos, long black hair. There was a note in one of Katie's text threads. She thought she'd deleted everything, but I checked her phone while she was in the shower. "Tony, you changed my life," she wrote. "What we share, it feels so freeing. I can't wait till next time." The date was from last week. She was in my bed, in my house, writing to him about how he set her free. 3 days later, I made a call. I told the man on the other end, "I have someone who owes me a debt. It's personal." I explained Tony's location, texted a photo, didn't elaborate on the details, but I offered compensation for the trouble. Another old contact, Some older investor who once got burned by Tony's uncle, or so the story goes, was more than happy to supply me with the resources. Men with grudges are easy to recruit, especially when you can give them a target. That part, I don't feel good about it. Let me be honest. I wasn't a gangster or a thug. I'm just an ordinary guy who snapped after realizing his entire life was a lie. But something about imagining Tony's smirk wiped off his face lit a spark in me. I wanted them to find him. I wanted them to do something that would haunt him, break him. I didn't need details. I just needed the assurance that he'd never be the same. That morning, I left a slip of paper on my desk, a typed note with Tony's address. And I also included a small container of fuel, something flammable. I told my contact, when you find him, use your creativity. He's a yoga instructor, so maybe some special twist. I don't know. Just make sure he learns not to mess with a man's life. No cops, no headlines. Quiet. They said, understood. I waited. I still saw Katie every day. We lived under the same roof. She tried to pretend everything was fine, though I noticed she started to look at me strangely, like she sensed a shift in my energy. She'd say, "Jack, are you okay?" Or, "You're so silent lately." I'd shrug, give her a half smile. Inside, I was counting down. The night before it happened, I forced her to speak into my phone's voice recorder. She didn't know I was taping at first. I said, "Tell me something, Katie. How did you like that couch, the one in the living room?" She was confused. "Oh, it's fine." "Why?" "Say it again." I raised my phone. "I want to record it. For the archives. How do you feel about that couch?" She blinked, gave a nervous laugh. "I think it's old, and we should replace it." "Say it again." She repeated, slower. "I think it's old, and we should replace it." I wanted her to repeat that exact text from her email, but I stopped myself. Instead, I asked a new question. "Tell me how wild you can be on a couch." She froze. "What?" "Repeat it. I just want your voice on record. Say how wild you can be on a couch." She stepped back, eyes wide. "Jack, what is this?" She reached for the phone, but I held it away. I said nothing, just stared. Eventually, she whispered, "This is scaring me." I turned off the recorder. "It's nothing," I murmured, and then walked away. She tried to follow, but I slammed the door to the basement in her face. Couldn't bear to look at her. Couldn't stand the pity or confusion. I spent another sleepless night on that cot, my mind replaying the images. Her moaning under him, her body pressed to that damned yoga mat, or maybe the couch. I pictured them sweaty, breathless. My teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. By noon the next day, I got a text from my contact. Simple words. "It's done." That's all. No details, no location. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. Katie came home late that evening. Said she'd been meeting a friend for lunch. She didn't mention Tony. Maybe she tried to call him, found his phone off. I could see her eyes flicker with an unspoken worry. "Jack, can we talk?" she said, voice trembling. I nodded, gestured for her to sit in the living room. She perched on the edge of that same couch. I stood across from her, arms folded. Her voice wavered. "I feel like something's wrong with us. You've been distant, sleeping in the basement, hardly speaking. Are you depressed? If there's something you want to say." I cut her off, quietly. "He's gone." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Who's gone?" Her phone buzzed, and I saw her pick it up, glance at the screen. A flicker of panic crossed her face. She typed something, waited for a response. Nothing came. I wanted her to repeat that question, but I spoke first. "Your lover, Tony. I gave his address to some men. They took him. I don't know where. But I don't think you'll be hearing from him again." She went white. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Jack, what are you saying?" I forced myself to keep my voice calm. "Don't worry. They won't kill them. They're more creative than that. He'll be alive. She stood, backing away. Her eyes darted around as if she were searching for an exit, for some explanation. Oh my God, you're scaring me. I stepped closer, so I was looming over her. I found your email. You messed up, Katie. You gave me the wrong reason to suspect. You gave me the final push. Then I got the DNA test. Her hand flew to her mouth. DNA test. Our son. He's not mine. So yes, you're damned right I did something. But it's not your blood that got spilled. Not yet. She started to weep, a raw, panicked sob. No, no, don't say that. Jack, I never meant. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Save it. I'm done with your words. She sank onto the couch, hugging herself, tears streaming down her cheeks. The woman who used to look so confident, so sure of her desires, now trembled like a leaf. And yet even then, I felt a pang of pity, or maybe love. Because yes, I still loved her. That's the sick part. Underneath everything, under the fury and heartbreak, I loved her. But I couldn't show it. Not anymore. The next days were a blur. We drifted through the house like ghosts. She tried to pack a bag, threatened to leave, then changed her mind. We argued about the kid. I told her, he can stay here. You can do what you want. She screamed that Jacob needed her. We nearly came to blows, but in the end, it was all words, hollow, echoing words in an empty house. Eventually, she left. She took Jacob and flew back to her parents in Minnesota for a while. That was the official story. But rumors started swirling that she ended up in Los Angeles, in a different neighborhood, renting a place, forging a new life. She posted a photo on social media, a sunset in Le, her standing on a balcony, smiling so bright that I saw the eyes, and I knew there was no soul left in them, just a vacant grin. She'd lost something, maybe her illusions, maybe her heart. She got what she thought she wanted, a fresh start. I told myself I didn't care. I tried to focus on my own future, but it wasn't that simple. The child wasn't mine, but he knew me as Dad. I couldn't rip out that bond, so I kept in touch, demanded visitation. She resisted at first, but eventually we arranged calls, carefully supervised. The boy's voice was so innocent. Daddy, when can I see you? I fought back tears every time, because how do I explain that everything he knows is a lie? Time passed. I thought about Tony a lot, wondered if he managed to crawl back to his yoga studio, or if those men left him disfigured. Part of me wanted to check, but I didn't want that reality. I liked the fantasy that he was out there, broken, paying for what he'd done to me. A savage thought, sure, but betrayal stirs savage impulses in a man. At night, I'd replay my last conversation with Katie, the way her voice cracked when she realized I had exacted revenge, the way she crumpled, sobbing, repeating, I'm sorry, over and over. I forced her to say it again into my phone recorder. She did. The sound of her tears on that recording was strangely hollow, tinny, like an echo. I never posted it anywhere or shared it, but I listened sometimes in the dark, trying to figure out if her sorrow was real or if it was just shame at being caught. You're strong, right? That question returns like a drumbeat, because being strong means you keep going, even if your life has become unrecognizable. Being strong means you face the emptiness in your bed, your house, your future, and say, I'll survive. But I'm not sure if that's true. I float through the days, flipping spreadsheets for clients, giving them advice on finances, all while my personal life is in tatters. One evening, I got a call from an unknown number. A man's voice, quiet, said, "We found him." That's all, and the line clicked off. I stared at the phone for a while. I guess that was their final notice to me. He was found, or maybe finished, or maybe they'd just let him crawl away. I wonder if Katie visited him in the hospital, if he ended up in one. I wonder if she saw him bandaged and screaming, or if she got a text that said, "Don't come." I wonder if it even matters now. Sometimes, a memory punches through the haze. I see Katie from 2 years ago, swirling around the kitchen with Jacob on her hip, singing some silly tune. I see the child's laughter, her bright grin, my own contented smile. We looked like a perfect family. And we were. For a moment, at least in my imagination. Then that email arrived, and everything changed. It's not that the life we had was entirely fake, but it was built on illusions. She must have begun her affair months, maybe years, after the wedding. Maybe it was just a fling at first. Maybe I was too busy to notice, or maybe I wanted not to see, because I wanted the dream, not the truth. A few weeks after she left, I tried to put the house up for sale. Couldn't stand the furniture, the couch especially. I walked around, shutting off lights in empty rooms, touching the walls she'd painted, the prints she'd hung. The silence pressed down on me. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. Finally, I sat on that damn couch, the one that had seen it all. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine it never happened. That we were still just Jack and Katie, normal couple, normal life. But I could smell her perfume in the cushions, and it made me sick. I lurched to my feet, found a box of matches, and for a second, I considered setting the couch on fire right there in the living room. Let it burn. Let the stench and smoke fill the house. Purge it. But I didn't. Instead, I sold it cheap to a neighbor who needed spare furniture. He had no idea how tainted it was. I remember handing the couch over, thinking, this is how you pass along curses, in broad daylight, with a forced smile. A few months rolled by in a blur. I tried to date, half-heartedly. Women see a man in his 30s, stable job, no ring. Some found me interesting. I'd smile politely, buy them coffee, but I was numb inside. My trust was shattered. I kept waiting for them to slip up, reveal some hidden betrayal. It never happened in those short attempts, but my paranoia was real. Katie rarely called. We communicated mostly through lawyers about custody of Jacob. I wanted partial rights, even though biologically he wasn't mine. She told me it was complicated. Her lover was the father, presumably, but who knows if the test specifically pinned it to Tony or some other possibility. That thought made me ill, but I didn't press the question. Months later, I got a thick envelope in the mail. Divorce papers. I flipped through them, my heart pounding. I half expected it, but seeing my name, her name, and the official legal language about irreconcilable differences, my hands shook. I signed on the dotted line. No fight left in me. Mailed it back. That's the end, right? That night, I drank whiskey alone in the basement. The memories I'd locked down started clawing their way up. I saw Katie smile, her eyes shining when she said, "I do" on the beach at sunset. I heard the officiant's words about love, honor, loyalty. Lies, all lies. Then I pictured Tony's tanned hand on her back, how she must have moaned for him, how I'd read her text telling him how wild she'd been. It gutted me. My phone was near my elbow, so I tapped to find a recording of her saying, I'm sorry. Pressed play. Her voice spilled into the darkness. I listened to her sobs. I felt no triumph, only hollowness. Then I recalled that man's quiet call. We found him. They must have done something unspeakable. And the worst part, I gave the order. I delivered him to that fate like a lamb to slaughter. Did that make me feel better? Maybe for a second. After that, it left me emptier than before. One day, I saw a new post from Katie. She'd used her maiden name again, Catherine O'Connor. The photo showed her wearing a casual dress, wind blowing her hair as she leaned against a balcony railing. The sun was setting behind her, Los Angeles skyline in the distance. She was smiling. The caption read something like, New Beginnings. People left comments with hearts and uplifting messages. But the eyes, I stared at her eyes. There was no warmth, no joy, just a forced curve of the lips. A mannequin's grin. I can't say I took pleasure in that. I can't say I felt guilt either. Maybe I was just numb. I studied her expression for a long time, looking for some sign that she was truly happy or truly tormented. I saw neither. Just emptiness. Time is strange. It can twist agony into a dull ache. I survived day by day. Focused on my job, closed a few big deals, watched the money pile up in my accounts. I even tried to buy a new place, a smaller condo with zero memories. But I ended up staying in the old house a bit longer, too lazy or too sentimental to truly let go. Friends, what few I had, asked me about Katie. I told them we separated, that it didn't work out. I never mentioned the affair. I never mentioned the child who wasn't mine. Some secrets are too ugly to share. People pried, but I gave them the blank face. That tinted glass expression. They shrugged and let it go. I did see Jacob once more, briefly. She flew in so he could see me, at least for an hour. We met at a playground. Jacob rushed at me, arms wide. "Daddy," he shouted, voice high with excitement. I knelt and scooped him up. It felt natural, but also excruciating, because I knew the truth. He wasn't my flesh and blood, but I loved him. In that moment, I realized how vile it was that Tony had fathered him. That Tony had taken everything from me, down to the illusions of fatherhood. Katie stood nearby, arms crossed. She looked thinner, or maybe just more hollow. I waved at her. She gave a small nod. Jacob babbled about his toys, about some new cartoon. I hung on every word. When it was time to say goodbye, I could hardly let him go. She cleared her throat, said softly, "Jack, we should head out." I kissed the boy's forehead, whispered, "Be good, kiddo." He giggled, not understanding the heartbreak in my voice. Then Katie and I locked eyes. For a second, she looked like she wanted to speak, to say something. A confession, an apology, a question. I don't know. But she didn't. She turned away, took his hand, and they walked off. I never saw them in person again. I stayed in that playground for a while, hands shoved in my pockets, shoulders hunched. "You're strong, right?" The question kept repeating, a cruel litany. "This is the price of your revenge, your pride. Now all you have is this emptiness." But maybe I had more than that, because even with the emptiness, I had clarity. I knew exactly how the puzzle pieces fit. I'd learned a lesson about illusions, about how people you trust can slice your soul open. I learned that maybe I do have a monster in me, because I set a trap for Tony and didn't flinch. I wonder if I'd do it again. Probably. Betrayal warps your moral compass. I sold the house at last, found a smaller apartment in a quiet neighborhood, threw away or sold most of our shared possessions, canceled the old cell plan that had her on it, opened a brand new line, repainted the walls in my new living space, something bright and neutral. No memories attached. It was all practical, methodical. Step by step, I dismantled the life I had, replaced it with something new. I tried to come to terms with the fact that I'd never see Tony's face again, never hear from those men who found him. That chapter was sealed. Part of me was curious if he'd come after me, if he'd want revenge for the punishment I'd unleashed. But he never did. Maybe he can't, physically or mentally. The reality might be he's off in another state, crippled, or maybe he fled. I'll never know. Sometimes, late at night, I replay the moment I read that email. "You were wild on the couch." The single line that changed everything. I think about how easy it would have been for me not to see it, for her to send it to the right address. Then we'd still be living in that comfortable lie. Or maybe I'd have found out another way. Doesn't matter. The result is the same. I'm telling you all this because I need to get it out. Because the question still haunts me. You're strong, right? I want to believe the answer is yes. But strength doesn't always look like heroism. Sometimes it looks like surviving your own worst impulses, living with the knowledge that you arranged for a man to be taken by a crew of vengeful scoundrels. Sometimes it's waking up in an empty bed every morning, remembering the woman you loved is gone, And you still love her anyway, despite the ruin she caused. Do I regret it? That's complicated. I regret how I handled it, maybe. Or I regret that it ever came to this. If Katie had told me the truth from the start, if we confronted it before it spiraled, maybe things would be different. But if I could go back, would I do everything the same? I don't know. Part of me thinks yes. Another part wants to scream. Once in a while, I catch myself scrolling through her old pictures on social media, searching for new posts. She's got a small circle these days, no big declarations of love, no photos with new men. Maybe she's learned her lesson about sharing too much. Maybe she's lonely. She keeps posting more sunsets, more images of the ocean. Always smiling, but the eyes remain empty. If you'd never known her, you might think she looks free. But I see the hollowness behind the grin. It's an odd comfort, that emptiness in her expression. Like we share the same hollow space in our chests, just separated by miles and secrets. We each hold a piece of the story. Me, the rageful husband who set a trap for her lover. She, the woman who betrayed me and lost the spark in her eyes. And Tony, wherever he is, holds the scars of it all. I suppose you expect me to wrap this up with some grand statement, some lesson. Maybe something about how vengeance doesn't heal wounds, or how trust, once broken, can never be truly repaired. But I don't have a neat conclusion. Life isn't neat. It's a messy, bleeding tangle of regrets and half-truths. Still, if I have to offer you something, it's this. Don't be too quick to say you know yourself. Don't assume you'll never cross a line. Because love and betrayal can rip the floor out from under you, turn you into a stranger. You might wake up one day, phone in hand, dealing with devils you once swore you'd never touch. And if you ever find yourself in that moment, where you're reading an email that strips your illusions bare, ask yourself, are you strong, right? Maybe you are. But be warned, strength doesn't always mean you'll feel good about your choices. Sometimes strength just means you don't collapse when you realize your world has gone to hell. Sometimes it's standing, watching everything burn, and not shedding a tear. Because deep down, you already used them all up. I can't say I'm proud of who I've become. I can't say I'm ashamed either. I exist in a gray zone, a man who discovered how far he'd go when pushed. My wife left with our child. My ex-wife, I should say. And now they live in a realm of forced happiness. I remain in my quiet corner, keeping track of the days. Once in a while, I re-listen to that recording. I'm sorry. Then I turn it off, whisper into the silence. So am I. There's a coda to every tragedy, a final note. Here's mine. I saw another photo of her recently. She was on the beach at sunset, holding Jacob's hand. She wore a sundress, the wind catching the hem, and her eyes were half closed. The caption, feeling grateful. I studied her face for a full minute. Maybe I saw a flicker of genuine warmth there, or maybe I imagined it. My chest felt tight again, that old mixture of longing and loss. Then I scrolled on, because that's all I can do now. Keep scrolling forward, day by day, living with the choices I made. I can't rewrite the past. I can't unlearn the taste of vengeance. I can't forget how it felt to have her moaning under my hands one night, only to find out she moaned for him on our couch the next day. You're strong, right? That question never leaves me. My answer is always the same. I don't know anymore. But I'm still here, breathing, living. Maybe that's enough.